One of our most primal emotions is fear. Whether it involves the unknown or physical harm or the thought of losing someone, fear is something we all experience whether we're willing to admit it or not. Now, when it comes to writing fiction, fear is a valuable part of any storyteller's arsenal. Whether you're writing books, movies, video games, whatever, fear is something that can both hook your audience and keep them engrossed. But how does fear work, and how do you use it correctly? Is it all about blood, gore, and darkness, or is there something deeper involved? Today I'm going to answer those questions by looking at one of the scariest video games I've played in recent memory, Resident Evil 2. Even if you're not a gamer, you've probably heard of Resident Evil. The series has been relevant for decades, and in 2019, Capcom released a remake of Resident Evil 2, which first came out in 1998 on the original PlayStation. The remake upgraded the game in several ways, most notably in terms of graphics, sound, and play control. And while those contribute to the game's terrifying atmosphere, what enables RE2 to scare audiences has more to do with three important storytelling techniques that I'm going to discuss today. But first I need to mention the game's genre, survival horror. This is a video game genre that Resident Evil 1 popularized in the mid-90s, which includes other notable series like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, Dead Space, and many more. The way survival horror games work is that you drop a relatively weak character into a situation where they're outmatched and overwhelmed by their opponents, whether those opponents are zombies, demons, aliens, whatever. Now, in order for the hero of any story to be overwhelmed, they have to be at a severe and constant disadvantage. And that's my first point. A severe disadvantage is terrifying regardless of the genre. Whether it's a gritty horror story or a high school romance, the rule still applies. Because if you put your hero in a situation where they don't have the abilities or the resources to comfortably succeed, you create a sense of doubt in your audience. That doubt is critical when it comes to evoking a sense of fear and suspense. Think about it this way. If you're a sports fan and your team plays a home game against a weaker opponent, you probably don't feel much dread leading up to game time. But if your team has to play a road game against a superior opponent, you worry for your team. You worry because it's only natural to doubt the odds of their success when they're at a disadvantage. Now, when it comes to storytelling, it's the writer's job to create doubt in the audience's mind. Resident Evil 2 does this by dropping the player into a claustrophobic environment that is loaded with lethal zombies. What makes the zombies scary isn't how ugly they are, but how they wear down your resources. If you want to kill one of these guys, you'll have to shoot them in the head several times, cutting into your limited ammo supply. Run low on ammo and you'll be tempted to sprint away from these zombies, but if you do that, they'll eventually grab you and bite you. Then you'll have to use your health items, which are just as scarce as ammo. Because of the lack of resources, you can't recklessly run around in this game. Instead, you have to approach every hallway, room, and sewer tunnel with a certain level of doubt and fear. Now, this also works outside the horror genre. For instance, in the movie The Dark Knight, Batman is outmatched by the Joker for much of the story. Even though Batman has a virtually limitless supply of resources, the Joker's cunning mind puts Batman at a severe disadvantage. He can't rely on his combat skills, his gadgets, or even his secret identity. As the Joker closes his grip around Gotham, the story's outcome falls further into doubt, and the audience experiences the terror that overtakes the city. Now back to RE2. While at first it can be terrifying to face a severe disadvantage, eventually players adjust to the situation and learn how to safely navigate the zombie-infested police station. Doubt and fear subside as a result, but that's when the game reinvents the threat by adding a new wrinkle to the mix, a biologically engineered super soldier known as Mr. X. Mr. X is not simply a powerful enemy, but a game-changing one. Blasting him with your precious ammo will only hinder him temporarily, and he'll soon get up and hunt you throughout the police station. Now, instead of you patiently navigating these zombie-infested rooms, you're forced to rush through them, which puts your health at risk and compels you to unload ammo in a panic just to survive. Escalating or reinventing the threat is critical to maintaining fear in a story, and it's my number 2 point. It's something that my favorite horror movie, John Carpenter's The Thing, does masterfully. If you've never seen it, The Thing is about a group of scientists at an Arctic research facility who get attacked by an alien shapeshifter. The creature arrives in the form of a dog, and at first it appears to be a containable threat. Then as it starts killing people and mimicking various members of the group, it spreads a new flavor of paranoia and claustrophobia into the story. No one is safe, no one can be trusted, and the threat escalates until the very end. Now, obviously, putting your characters in immediate danger is an effective way to create dread. It's even better when you deliver on that danger by causing suffering, whether physical or otherwise, to the main character. This makes us buy into the danger even more. But it may surprise you to find out that my final point for today is to lay off on the threat. Sure, this may sound counterintuitive, but a situation can actually get scarier if you tap the brakes on whatever major threat you've established. RE2 does this during a hectic sequence where you have to move bookcases in order to build a bridge from one balcony to another. While moving these bookcases, you have to avoid both zombies and Mr. X. Anyone who's played the game knows this is a nerve-wracking sequence, and if you're lucky enough to survive, you climb a ladder, run across your makeshift bridge, and exit the room toward the clock tower where a valuable package is waiting. But guess what? The package is stuck, and the only way to get it is to start the clock tower. Now here's the scary part. While you're running around this dark room trying to repair the control mechanism, you hear the constant thump, thump, thump of Mr. X's footsteps over and over. The entire time you're waiting for it to happen. You're waiting for Mr. X to burst through the door and beat you to death. And as the footsteps keep pounding, you start wanting it to happen because the tension is so great. It's too much, and before long you're begging Mr. X to just charge through the door already. But he doesn't. And that's why it's so unnerving. Because sometimes the threat of harm is scarier than the harm itself. This is especially true when you hold back an established threat like Mr. X. We know he can hurt us, we know the thumping noise signals his arrival, and as a result, the footsteps start having this Pavlovian effect on us. Footsteps equal fear, and then it becomes a question of when he will catch up to us, even if he doesn't. And in the meantime, that fear eats away at us. Alien uses this technique toward the end of the movie when Ellen Ripley is trying to evacuate the ship. After she triggers the self-destruct program, she hurries down a corridor toward the escape pod. However, her route is cut off by the xenomorph and she's forced to retreat. When she fails to cancel the self-destruct program, she is left with no choice but to go down that same corridor where the xenomorph was moments ago. At this point, both Ripley and the audience believe the creature to be there, and because of this, we dread what should happen at any moment now. But ultimately, nothing happens. Instead of giving us the monster, the director mercilessly drags out this moment and thereby drags out the tension until Ripley is presumably safe aboard the escape pod. No matter what you're writing, these three techniques I discussed will help you inject fear and suspense into your stories. Putting your heroes at a disadvantage, reinventing the threat, and withholding an established threat will rattle your audience if done well. The important thing to remember is that fear is built not by cosmetic elements like blood and gore and hideous monsters, but by the scenarios your characters find themselves in, and how those scenarios develop in order to keep your characters at a constant disadvantage. Now I'm curious what you think. What is the best way to terrify an audience? Is it one of today's tips or is it something else entirely? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons for me, share this video with a friend if you don't mind, and as always, remember to keep on writing.